Gamecock fans, now you can have your coffee and also support the Gamecocks in a championship quest to get to the top of the SEC and the top of the country by going to GamecockCoffee.com and purchasing Rise and Shine New Orleans Roast Gourmet Coffee. All of your purchases go to benefit Garnet Trust and put NIL dollars in the coffer of the Gamecocks official NIL collective. Check it out today and support the Gamecocks NIL effort.
You can count on JC Shurburtt to know what's going on in the world of sports, except for cricket.
Do you need to sit in timeout for a few minutes?
The Geneva Convention doesn't recognize it as a game, and neither does JC.
Good morning, Gamecock fans. JC Shurburtt here with you. Welcome to Coffee. Today is Wednesday, February 26th, the year of our Lord 2025. I want to welcome you in. Thank you for your patience. Had to be off of coffee yesterday because I had something with the funeral on Tuesday. It's put me behind this week, honestly, but hopefully no more funerals for a while. I guess I'm just at that age. Some of my friends have said it too. Things like that really make you think, start contemplating life. And for me, it kind of has made me feel a great sense of gratitude, for what I do in life, and all of you out there in my audience. Some of you I consider my friends. And I'm just grateful and lucky and fortunate to have the people around me on a daily basis that are involved with my life and also my work. I think I'm very lucky to get to do what I do. And sometimes when you have a situation where you lose someone and, it's been a lot of loss, you sort of reflect on that. So thank you. Thank you very much for being a part of what I do and for what it means to my life on a personal level. So just wanted to appreciate, tell you guys and gals, I appreciate you very much. And just want to leave it at that. And so let's move on to sports. I'm ready to get back at it, man. It's, being gone for about a couple of days last week and a couple of days this week. It's kind of, I'm ready to get back in, chomping at the bit. And we got a good show today here on Coffee, and we'll be back with the show Inside the Gamecocks, the show later today. We'll have a JC and Morgan today. Tony Barnhart will be on with us, Mr. College Football. Was what his columns used to say back in the day when he worked for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Probably a lot of Georgia and SEC perspective. So if you want to check that out, please do so. JC and Morgan, that's myself and Mike Morgan on I call it broad-based college football. You saw Gamecock Coffee at the beginning. Sales have been, steady, but a little brisk at times. Still need to sell more coffee. Please, please, please. Even if you don't make a purchase, if you don't like coffee or popcorn, spread the word, send it to your friends that do. Even like Gamecock fans that aren't that hardcore, that love the team. When I say hardcore, I mean, listen to podcasts, get on the internet, tweet about it, that kind of thing. Don't follow recruiting, but they love the Gamecocks, go to the games. Maybe they'll buy back a coffee to support the cause. Sometimes you're much more likely to get people to do that than to join a monthly membership and have things come out of their account. I need to actually clean up my account, by the way. I got some stuff. I was looking at the other day. I was like, what about paying for this video app that I don't even use? And, you ever had to do that? It's kind of like spring cleaning, so to speak, these days, when you do that and trim the fat, so to speak. But, a lot of people don't like to do that. They don't like the monthly thing. I found that out during Carolina Rise. We sold a lot of one-time memberships and things like that because people just didn't. They preferred to do it along, and that's fine. But if you can sell them a bag of coffee, that's good too. We got to optimize every piece of possible monetization ground for NIL at Carolina. Every school does. I mean, it's not unique to the Gamecocks. But go to GamecockCoffee.com, buy you some coffee. If you're a Keurig person like I am, they sell the little stainless steel cups on Amazon, and they're washable and they work fine because it's fresh ground. It's not pods, but we can definitely you can get by with that, and it's actually good. Some people have they grind their own beans and stuff and put them in the little cups. So check that out. Don't want to spend all day on that. Obviously, yesterday, tough night on the hardwood for the Gamecocks, 101-71 at Missouri. Not surprised because Missouri is really hot right now, and Carolina plays a lot better at home than they do on the road. The home has been where they've had most of their close calls. I mean, Vanderbilt was one that got away up in Nashville, but early in the conference. But they don't really, they haven't really had a lot of great road performances this year. Missouri won 101-71. One score I did notice last night: Alabama beats Mississippi State 111-73. And I was talking on the air in Tuscaloosa the other day. I'm on every Thursday with Wimp Sanderson and Barry Sanderson, and we just kind of talk Gamecocks and whatever else. They were kind of fretting Alabama's ending to their schedule because it's tough, it's brutal. But they beat Kentucky 96-83, and then they slap the Bulldogs of Mississippi State last night. And they're an NCAA tournament team, MSU is. So hats off to the Tide. Big win there. And, of course, Georgia beat Florida last night. So congrats to the Dogs for that big upset. It's been a tough year. I read right before the game some kind of on ESPN.com Mike White hot seat speculation in Athens. That would be interesting. I can't see it happening, depending on the buyout and everything else. But I think it's probably more one of those one more year kind of deals. But yeah, Lamont Paris's team, Calamari Bulls, had a good game statistically, but they were really not in it from the start. And just regroup, it was good to get that one win, but the losses are piling up. And I think the conversation with basketball moving is going to be much more focused, not necessarily on wins and losses down the stretch. Heck, you hope they win because they've never given up on the season. I'd like to say they play their butts off every game and they do hustle, but it's, you have disasters like last night. They don't always show up in terms of basketball. And that's not I'm not criticizing their work ethic or anything like that. This team just doesn't show up sometimes. I mean, it's just not, they don't play well. And so I think it's good. The focus now, as this season winds to a close, is going to be what happens moving forward. We're going to have a lot of details on that and information. I would expect a lot of transfer portal activity inbound and outbound. Inbound and outbound for the Gamecocks. Carolina baseball, another run rule win. Softball got another run rule win too, by the way. I want to mention that. They're still rolling. 14-4 over Gardner-Webb. Yours truly, I kind of just checked on the baseball score. I didn't listen to the whole broadcast yesterday. I kind of checked on the baseball score and I almost had a heart attack because I pull it up and I'm the game last night started a little later and we're getting to the point of the season where they're not late afternoon games. It started at 6 my time, 7 y'all's time, or 6, maybe it was 6 y'all's time. Anyway, it was an evening game. So I pull it up just assuming it was a 4:00 first pitch. and I look and I see Gardner-Webb 2, Carolina 1, and then I looked, it was the bottom of the first. So no problem with the running Bulldogs. I guess that's what they're called in basketball. Of Gardner-Webb 14-4. Now it gets real. Friday evening, 7:00, Doug Kingsmore Stadium in Clemson. The renewal of the rivalry. It's going to be a challenge. Clemson's good. Clemson last night won 20-7 over Winthrop. They're good. They're a good baseball team. They're not infallible. They have lost, but this obviously is going to be tough competition. Looks like the pitching rotation is going to change. Becker's going to move up and get the start on Friday. So we'll see what happens. But it's going to be a challenge. They go Clemson, then Greenville. By the way, if you've ever been to the game in Greenville, it's a lot of fun, floor field. And then Columbia at Founders Park, rounding out the series on Sunday. So it's here. There you go. That's when baseball season sort of unofficially starts. When the Clemson series comes around, you want to win all these games. All these games against lesser teams, and then you got the test with Clemson, and then I think another series, and then Oklahoma comes to town for the opener in the SEC. Today's football topic, we're going to talk about the secondary, and this is probably a relatively positive subject. I look and you see all the departing talent, and there are two, starters leaving from the secondary on defense. But you sort of look and the history here with Torian Gray on the back end is he usually just reloads. I mean, I don't know that anybody saw the last 2 years Marcellus Dial coming and having a good senior year. Certain plays that were spotlighted notwithstanding, like the Florida game, and he gets drafted. Cam Smith got infinitely better. He got drafted high under Torian Gray, Darius Rush, which was an out of nowhere kind of thing. And then this year, O'Donnell Fortune. And again, I'll give a shout out to Jamie Bradford, who called OD Fortune as having a really good year. And he did. You're going to get beat in coverage sometimes in the secondary. It's just inevitable. But he, more times than not, did really, really well, and had some hard luck with some pick sixes during the season against A&M and LSU. But certainly, I think he played his best ball as a senior, just like Dial and Smith and Rush and everybody. Satorian's pretty good at getting guys ready to go and replacing players that he needs to replace. I mean, that's just kind of how it goes, and that's a positive because that's what you want. You don't want to sweat every year when your top corner leaves, and goes someplace else. I think with Fortune, we haven't talked about it enough because I think there is that assumption there they'll just reload. And then Vakari Swain, very decorated recruit, as a redshirt freshman last year, played pretty well. And so you just say, well, Swain, it'll be Swain and Collier instead of Collier and Fortune and Swain. And Swain rotated in a whole lot and had a bunch of snaps. And I tend to agree with that. I like Vakari as a player. I think he too is physical and very good in coverage. And, sometimes he busts, and that's fine. But it happens, especially with first guys that are really playing for the first time, which he was last year. But he gets better and better and better. When he came in, I probably would have said in 2023, and then there's people that agreed with me too, like that with the way the receiving core, like a lot of other spots, had injuries in 2023, and you didn't have a lot of explosiveness outside of Xavier Legette. Why not give him some snaps at receiver? But they didn't. They held true that he's going to redshirt and be a corner, and that's probably why most of us that were saying that aren't coaching on the field. Now, there were some folks inside the program that said it was a good idea at the time, but I don't know that they weren't secondary coaches that said it, and they weren't receivers coaches that said it. So it was Vakari, has gone from a guy where you really kind of say, well, it's either or, to a guy that's got a future at corner and a big one. And so it kind of starts with him as far as replacing Fortune goes. But, South Carolina also signed 2 transfer portal corners. Miles Norwood coming in from Ball State, and then Brandon Cisse from NC State, the local kid from Sumter. Same pipeline that sent O'Donnell Fortune over, Anthony Addison. There's a lot of players from Sumter. Josh Simon was not from Sumter High School, but he's from Dalzell, which is Sumter. Burns, my high school, played Hillcrest Dalzell. That's an old school. It was funny as an aside here. Hillcrest Dalzell and Ray Allen in basketball played Burns for the state championship and won 71-63. And then my junior year of football, Burns was pretty good, and I think had the number 1 seed in the Division II 4A at the time. There was no 5A in South Carolina. It was Big 16 and then 2 4A. And they came out to Duncan and beat Burns. It's unbelievable, that school. So anyway, 21-17 was that final. But it closed. And they don't have Lakewood, Crestwood, those schools over in Sumter now, but no more Hillcrest. But it was they were a hellacious school as far as Burns High School went back in the day. But Josh Simon's from over that way. So, will Brandon Cisse start? And these are the questions you have to start asking about the secondary, is the where. And I've told people this at linebacker. especially like with Clayton White, it always like the Mike and Sam, it's a different type of deal in this system than maybe your traditional Mike Sam linebacker. And so I always end up thinking one guy's a Mike, one guy's a Sam, and they're not. And then in the secondary, you just never know who's a safety, who's a corner, who's a nickel from year to year because some of those guys will go to nickel slash corner, some are nickel slash safeties. And so that's the bigger question is the where. So I think that that's the number one thing that's going to kind of determine where everybody fits and ultimately who starts as far as safeties and nickels are concerned. The corners, it kind of depends on. All right, so if you have a guy that's going to be like Brandon Cisse, if he's a nickel, obviously he's not starting at corner. Jalewis Solomon, who we probably don't talk about enough, who redshirted, he's kind of like Cam Smith or Bakari Swain, ultra talented player, highly recruited guy, redshirted first year, and so that's fine. He'll be ready to roll in 2025. So is he a corner or is he going to stay at nickel? I think it's kind of a choose your own adventure because it's like if this, then this, and this, and you can follow the flow chart almost. I didn't have time to put together a graphic flow chart for my YouTube audience, so apologize for that. But I want to get this out quick. It's coffee, and if it comes out at 9, people have had their coffee. Chuckle, chuckle. Nevertheless, so where do these guys play? Cisse going to be this, that, and the other. But corner, I'm going to look at corner for the purposes of this discussion as just straight up who's better. They'll all battle it out. And I'm going to say, that probably Cisse and Solomon will be corner slash nickels, and maybe back it up, maybe, and but that's part two. That's the if then this. Okay. I hope I'm not confusing you. So Jelon Kilgore is a returning starter. DQ Smith is a returning starter. And then you have obviously Judge Collier as a returning starter. So you got 3 out of the 5 coming back. The question is going to be about Kilgore. And I think he's a heck of a player. I don't know that, I would call him a liability in coverage. I think sometimes heck, that pass against Missouri, he had Burden covered one-on-one. Cook just threw a great ball. Burden went up and made a play. It's just a step. How are you going to cover? Luther Burden one-on-one in that situation. That was a good play call by them. That's what you want, that matchup. But, he's made some plays. I thought that this year in particular, his coverage ability improved. He didn't come off the field a whole lot at nickel. And really kind of came into his own there. And if you remember in 23, at the end, that's kind of the move they made because they had Nick Emmanwori at nickel for a while, DQ Smith for a while, and the secondary had some major issues against Mississippi State, Florida, and some other teams, all the way through A&M, really, which is when A&M had a big second quarter, and that was about it. But they got better in that A&M game, and then came back home. Struggled with a special prep as far as Jacksonville State goes, and then proceeded to shut down Vandy, Kentucky, and Clemson to end the season. And I think that kind of gave them some confidence heading into this year. But, Kilgore's coverage is going to come up sometimes just because of history. But I did think it's pretty obvious he had a good year in that department. At nickel. And so do you move him back? Because obviously he can play safety too, and he's good. He's a good player. But do you risk weakening 2 positions? Like, in other words, you take him off nickel where he played all last year and thrived and was comfortable, and showed a knack for making plays and interceptions and fumble recoveries, all that good stuff, to move him back to safety? Or do you just replace Nick Emmanwori at safety? And Nick Emmanwori is a huge guy to replace. Let's just be honest. He's a freak. He was a freak. I loved the fact that Nick was so good in run support and tackling. A guy that's that physically gifted, that's that tall. Sometimes, that it's hard for him to get low and dirty and get in there and rock a running back, take on a running back role. But he did it every game. I mean, he was an excellent tackler, really his whole career at South Carolina. And a smart football player too on the back end. If you ever get a chance, I think it's 1801 Media interviewed him, and he was talking about the pick six that got called back against LSU, which was terrible, and how on that play, Clayton White, Torian Gray, the defensive staff gives the safety the freedom to sort of check and change it, and kind of confuse. And if you notice, Nussmeier threw it right to him because it was a switch, and very smart of Nick to do that. And so that's a big loss as well. And that's probably, that's the loss we've been talking about. I mentioned Fortune for a while, and obviously he has to be replaced. So do you replace him with Jelani Kilgore? I mean, because that's, he's a veteran by now. He's one of your best defensive players. You've built around him in many ways. He's a leader on the team. Would he go back to, do you just move him to that spot? I don't know, or would it weaken two positions? So let's say let's go through both scenarios. He does and he doesn't. So he does. And that your safeties are set, Kilgore, DQ Smith, and so you're looking for a nickel. So who plays nickel? That's another question. Would it be Brandon Cisse, who did play some nickel at NC State, who I think is physical enough? I think he's good in coverage. Do you leave Jalewis Solomon there? Because those guys, too, in theory, would be your third or fourth corner, but you didn't really play but three corners last year. And you still have Emory Floyd, who's a veteran. As of right now, I haven't heard he's going to hit the portal or anything, who could give you some snaps back there. So would Cisse and or Solomon be your nickels? Or how about Kelvin Hunter going into his second year? He was back up at nickel, with kind of co-back up with Jalewis last season as a true freshman. He's physical. The question would be about coverage with him, and it's not that I've seen him get beat in coverage at Carolina or anything like that. It's just that's always what you with a big safety like that, that's an in the box guy, you wonder about coverage. With Jalewis Solomon and Brandon Cisse, I don't really worry about coverage. With Jalewis, can he, to use a Muschampism, stick his face in the fan and like it and play physical? Because at nickel, it is a hybrid, and you have run support. I mean, you have to make tackles, or they'll run right at you and over you and around you. I know Cisse, from what I saw at NC State, can make tackles. So that's the big question over there at nickel. Do you play there's two true freshmen that I think kind of stand out physically. Kendall Daniels Jr., 6'4", 220. Do you teach him nickel? Or how about DeMarcus Leach, even 6'3", 183 from Abbeville, who's a corner now. He was kind of projected as a safety, but they have him starting out at corner. So how does that work? Jaquel Hallman is starting out in the secondary, probably as a nickel, maybe a safety, kid from Blackville Hilda. So where do the freshmen step in? That is, if you move Kilgore back. Now, what if you don't? What if you say he was shined at nickel this past year? Was good. He's better in coverage. We need to just leave him alone and replace Nick Emmanwori with who we got. So then that means nickel job is not open. The backup, at nickel, name your guy that I just listed off: Solomon, Hunter, Cisse, guys like that over there, maybe one of the freshmen. Because Kilgore's not going to come off the field a bunch. They keep him out there. So on the back end, so who starts? Who's the guy that replaces Nick Emmanwori if you leave Kilgore at nickel? And Peyton Williams got the start in the bowl. I thought Peyton, when he Came in for DQ Smith against Vanderbilt, played really one of his best games in that game. He saw spot duty in 2022 against Tennessee. He's kind of they didn't have anybody, just kind of threw him out there. I thought he played well, had a pass breakup. He's a Texas kid, been here for a while, a veteran, no problems with tackling, and pretty good in coverage. So Peyton Williams would be if they don't move Kilgore, and I say this sometimes, who's going to go out first at spring practice? Peyton Williams. I would venture to say that would be the guy. Another guy, David Boucy, Boucy, David Boucy. That's how you say it. As a redshirt freshman, he played all games on special teams last year. He's from Savannah. Saw some action, bound the back end, like him. I think he's got a big future here. Maybe if it's special teams again this year, but he's going to be a contender for that spot. I think, and wouldn't surprise me if he ends up starting. If he's gotten, made the progress I think he could make. They like him. He kind of when he committed, some people thought they were trying to kind of gear up to get his teammate who was a 2025 D tackle, ended up at Georgia, a 5-star guy. That wasn't it. They liked him as for who he is. And obviously special, is what I call a special teams demon last year. He was all over the place on special teams. So he's at least going to have that role again this year, maybe more action at safety. So you look at that, he's an option. I mentioned Kendall Daniels Jr. It's hard to say true freshmen will start, especially when you're ranked in the top 10 by some preseason polls and all that good stuff. You have championship aspirations, but there's other schools that win championships that start true freshmen. And Nick Emmanwori started as a true freshman too. He was just too good to keep off the field. I'm intrigued by Daniel, 6'4", 220, out of Norfolk, Virginia, the 757. It's just a matter of learning the college game, and that's a long journey that you have to make when you come in. But something tells me he's going to kind of make an impact. Maybe he's not even in the too deep, but he's one, again, we probably don't talk about enough. But that's an option at safety. Zabari Sandy, a player from Washington, D.C., 6 foot, 205 pounds, bigger safety. We probably all forgot about him. We forgot about him during recruiting because in his class, he was one of the first people to commit out of D.C., but he's one of those D.C. kids like Nick Harbor, Dylan Stewart, the Maryland guys. But he had an ACL injury last year and was out for the whole season. So if healthy and ready to go, could he play a factor? Because he's not one we're talking about a whole lot. But he's still a really good player, and he's going into his third year into the program. And if he's healthy and ready to go, I could see him playing a factor. Gerald Kilgore, who came in from the transfer portal, who played some in the secondary, lots on special teams, Jalan's brother. So is it Jalen or Jalan? I thought it was Jalen. I'm saying that wrong. Kilgore, J. Kilgore. Let's just go. There's J. Kilgore and G. Kilgore. Gerald Kilgore is who we're talking about right now. He came from Tennessee Tech. Good player. Again, that wouldn't surprise me either. I think that last year, some of these guys like Gerald Kilgore, like Solomon, who redshirted, like Kelvin Hunter, who redshirted, they didn't play a whole lot because they didn't really have to. Those guys, Emmanwori, Smith, Fortune, Swain, and Collier rotated at corner, and so their snaps were less. But they didn't take Nick off the field a whole lot until he took himself off. All's forgiven, I guess, on that one. I've forgiven him. I mean, I don't. I think he made a huge mistake with that, and he knows it. But and now they're talking about his draft stock going up because he ran 4.35 the other day at his size. I think he'll really kill the combine, and so we'll see what happens there. But so replacing him, easier said than done, right? That's those are kind of your options back there. So I go back and forth, and it's probably because, as far as like what I would, my opinion, which means jack squat, as I've pointed out, with regards to these types of decisions, I probably, I'd probably see what I could get by with at nickel and then depth at corner, and then make a decision there. Are you going to be okay with whoever plays nickel, and then Kilgore can go back, because I don't have any doubt Kilgore can slide back and be good. Or will nickel be a liability, and you're better off going with a Peyton Williams or one of the people I just mentioned on that. I think moving Kilgore back, J. J. Kilgore, uh, gives you a chance to maybe get your best five on the field. And I say that because of Cisse and Norwood. I don't know that Miles Norwood's going to nickel, but if you can get Cisse to play nickel, if he's your nickel, or Jalewis Solomon, then that's good. I think Jalewis Solomon again. And we'll just talk about him a second. He came to Carolina as a highly decorated recruit. Gamecocks flipped him from Auburn. I've never seen that on an out-of-state player. That was a big recruiting win. He's good. He's going to be really good, and spent the year learning the nickel spot. So what to make of Jalewis? If you could start him there, or Cisse, and slide Kilgore back, that may be the way to get your best five on the field. If not, then nickel's going to be in good hands with Kilgore, and then you find another safety, and maybe that is Peyton Williams. I mean, I can't rule him out as being a starter and having a good year. I mean, that's sort of the player development part of it, and he's been good in spurts when he's played. I don't know that he had the best bowl game, just to be honest, but they missed Nick quite a bit in that bowl game. But, he's a good player, and certainly would be fine with him. And then kind of the moonshot would be Kendall Daniels Jr. back there lining up. And then with DeMarcus Leach at corner, that gives you a guy with some upside that can maybe get in there and get some snaps as a true freshman, and then Vakari Swain, Judge Collier, all that. Another kind of crazy idea I don't know, is okay, so let's say you got, Swain could play nickel potentially. That's semi intriguing, but I think they're going to need him on the perimeter. Judge Collier, I think, would be a heck of a nickel, because that dude's physical and he can tackle. He's a bone cruncher out there, and certainly is athletic enough and can cover well enough. So that would be another. That's another moonshot kind of. Oh, about this crazy idea. None of this is crazy, really. It's a fun puzzle to kind of pick up, because I've been looking at it and I'm like, they've got a lot of options, a lot of players. It's not like it used to be, like when the staff first got here, and a lot of the players from the secondary transferred out, and who's going to play say to us? It's going to be Jalen Foster, a walk-on, who was named an All-American, by the way, that year, Walter Camp. But and he was perfectly fine back there. But that was a spot where you kind of go, oh, what are you going to do? And then the next year, Emmanwori and DQ Smith started and played a lot as true freshmen. But now, and this is part of building a program, you look at it, and the portal players they got in Norwood and Cisse, you're talking about whether they'll start or not. And they're both good players, And I mentioned earlier that the guys really didn't come off the field in the secondary a whole lot last year. Maybe that changes this year. I can't see Kilgore coming off too much. DQ Smith, I know opinions are mixed about him out there, but there's no chance he's not a starter. They love him. I mean, there's a disconnect there between the fan base and observers and then DQ and how good he really is. He didn't have as many big plays. He didn't have big plays this year. Because if you think about it, early in his career, big plays, block punt for a touchdown, the pick six against Notre Dame in the bowl. It was a little quiet for him last season back there. And they're going to compete. Nobody's guaranteed a starting job. But I I think the chances are slim that he will not start. So I'm probably not even going to bring up anybody that could beat him out because I just don't think it'll happen. That's just the bottom line there. So the secondary. So that I think they'll be good on the back end again this year. The pass rush obviously helps you back there. You could be kind of medium, sort of medium looking in the secondary, if you will, uh, and have a good pass rush and you look really good because there's tip balls and things like that. And, the lineman or the front tips the ball and then, whoever catches it gets the glory, right? Thus is football, right? So we'll see. I think pass rush obviously is going to be important and something they're going to work on. And you hope you hope you get a pass rush next year. I think with Dylan Stewart and some of the other guys, chances are high that South Carolina have a pretty good pass rush in 2025. All right, so that concludes coffee for today. We appreciate it. I appreciate it. Everyone appreciates it. You guys joining me this morning. Don't forget, we got a JC and Morgan coming up with Tony Barnhart, Inside the Gamecocks, the morning show this morning, and then Inside the Gamecocks, the show with myself and the Mad Dog as we get back into the swing of things. JC is back, hopefully for a long, long time. Don't want to. I'm tired of going to funerals, folks. But so hopefully this is a nice period of continuous me being here. I certainly hope that for the sake of everyone. Anyway, don't forget, encapsulateusa.com. Use code JCM for $10 off, free shipping over 60. Encapsulate supplements. Get me up and going every morning. They're good. They work. And also don't forget GamecockCoffee.com. Buy that coffee. Spread the word for me. There's probably about 3 or 4 of you out there that I know that will definitely do that. So your efforts are much appreciated to get this coffee sold. All right. We'll talk to you guys later. JC Shurburtt out. Holla at you soon.